Christian Dior Gasper joining us via Zoom. I know he wanted to start. I was going to call you Yves Saint Gasper. Is what
I would have taken that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Christopher, not Christian, but close enough. Joins us now via Zoom. And that comment, I know, by Jayson Tatum's getting some attention here in the last week, Chris. Him saying that his primary goal is to win a championship, and that if he does that, he could be the face of the league, replace someone like LeBron James. And I know there was something that happened during last night's Celtics game, their victory over the Bulls, that captured your attention with regard to Tatum. So please share.
Yeah, I didn't so much mind the cut that you guys played, but I think that one of the great things about this Celtics season has been the fact that they have gelled together so well, been willing to subjugate their ego and their personal goals for the betterment of the team. And Tatum even said in December, he said, everybody has to sacrifice. I'm certain that none of us are averaging career highs in points. They're all taking a dip, but it's for the better of the team. Our success as a unit is more important, and we understand that. I sort of feel like we're going back to last year, where it's this endless campaign to make Tatum the MVP, to make sure Tatum scores 30 points a game. In the middle of that Bulls game, it was like the first half, all of a sudden NBC Sports Boston cuts to this graphic, and they have Abby, who I love. Abby Chen's the best. And she's saying, okay, we're going to talk about, why are more people not talking about the best player on the best team as an MVP candidate? I think Tatum has a legitimate case for MVP. I get it. But why are we going back to this endless politicking, campaigning, prioritizing of Jayson Tatum's individual accomplishments over the team? Can he be the face of the league? Should he be the MVP? You read this story that Jared Weiss did, which is a great story. He's talking in the beginning of it about, how great it is to have his face on a bag of potato chips. Like, what are we doing? Why are we going back to this? It's all working really well. The team is locked in. On nights like last night when they're passing in the beginning of the game, like the 86 Celtics, it's fantastic. And I think everybody understands this is a put up or shut up season for them as a team to win a championship. So why are we now interjecting this thing we had to interject last year of this endless, ceaseless promotion of Jayson Tatum's individual goals and status in the NBA?
Well,
I don't understand it.
Well, you know who's to blame for this? It's the fans who lost their minds in the last couple of weeks after this Tim Bontemps behind the ESPN paywall straw poll for the MVP, in which he talked to GMs, unnamed GMs throughout the league, and Tatum's sixth in the voting. And people heard that like, oh my God. Sixth? Oh my God. Like, okay, it's a little low, but I don't know.
It is a little low. It's too low.
It's too low, but I don't know, like Jokic, SGA, and OKC, like I think those two players deserve to be ahead of Tatum this year. 6 is too low, but people absolutely lost their minds because of this straw poll. And I think since then, again, that's now going back maybe a couple of weeks ago, week and a half, this thing has really picked up.
Yeah, I just don't understand why him winning MVP, like, it really matters or needs to get, like, wouldn't you rather have him be the Bill Russell Finals MVP?
Without
the regular
question.
Season MVP?
Yeah.
And don't people around here sort of throw around that, like, Joel Embiid's a loser? I don't think he's a loser, but it's like, oh, Joel Embiid, he's great in the regular season, but, you can't really count him in the playoffs because he gets hurt and he's not really a winner. So that guy has an MVP. Which side of the street are we going to be on? The MVP really, really matters, or winning matters? So it just bugs me, because it bugged me last year too. And I thought it was like this, like, agenda that at times infected the team and affected the way that the team was managed and coached. And I don't want to go back to that. I absolutely do not want to go back to that.
No, it's a fair concern. I'm sorry to cut you off, because it is.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it has been noticeable this last few, going to the All-Star break, coming out of it, some of those quotes last night, it's like, what are we doing here? Like, and I get it. Like, it's a very individualistic sport and league, and the MVP is important to those guys, and I get that, and it should be. But what's the bigger prize? It's winning the title.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's winning the title, and that should be the sole focus of everybody in the organization. And I'm not saying that's not, like, Tatum's not focused on that. I don't really think much of this is coming from Tatum, to be honest.
So, Chris, I was just going to ask you that. Is this the way you said it to me suggests that you're more irritated with the fan base and the coverage than you are with Tatum himself?
Well, I don't think it happens in a vacuum. My irritation is with the team, because I feel like this is a thing that gets, like, propped up, by the team. And it happened, I thought, last year. And I feel like it's starting to sort of happen again. He's answering questions. I do think he, throughout the course of his career, has maybe been a little too focused or gotten too wrapped up in the individual stuff. But, when he's asked a question about being the face of the league, or he's asked a question by Malika Andrews about who's the best player in the league, he's going to answer the question. He's not the one bringing this up. But now I feel like there's this concerted effort, as there was last year in the broadcast, and if you listen, on the radio, and the media relations and all this other stuff, to try and make this case and promote him. Remember the whole thing last year about the scoring champion isn't the person who averages the most points per game.
Oh,
it's
right.
the person who scores the most points, which
good,
happened
Chris.
to be him. Remember that?
Yeah, very good.
I'd never heard that in my life. And all of a sudden that came out of nowhere to prop up his MVP case. So I just don't want us to get wrapped up in this again. The team is incredible. They've won, a season high 7 in a row. The chemistry is off the charts. They're such an enjoyable watch. Things are going well. Why do we need to interject this individual thing that, doesn't really matter and is antithetical to what the Celtics have been about throughout their history? It's about the championships. It's not about the Celtics have never had an NBA scoring champion, by the traditional measure,
right.
Points per game. Does that mean anything less? Do you think any less of any of the great Celtics because they never accomplished that? No.
In fact,
Celtics
Chris,
are measured by championships.
In fact, Chris, I would say the opposite. They wear that like a badge of honor. They love to tell people we got all these titles, but we don't have a scoring champion. What does that tell you? We believe in the team concept. I have another question for you about Tatum, but I know McBone's got something. So go.
Well, I just wonder too if this is sort of tied into the All-Star game and the lack of respect, I guess, at least from the fan base's perspective, that Derek White, Kristaps Porzingis not named to the All-Star team. You got the best record in the NBA, and there really hasn't been any affirmation or any juice sort of behind some of these individual acknowledgments to the season that you're having as well. I wonder if that's kind of all intertwined when we talk about Jayson Tatum and this push for MVP over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, McCone, I think it's a valid point, but why do we? Again, I just sort of look at it and say I don't really care who gets individual accomplishments. I mean, I think Porzingis absolutely should have made it. White's having an amazing season. I think it's kind of hard to take him over Jalen Brunson because Brunson has more on his plate. He has more of a load to carry for his team's success. Derek White is tremendous, but he is behind 3 guys averaging 20 points per game this year in Tatum, Brown, and Porzingis. So that makes his job a little bit different than Jalen Brunson, who's the best player in the Knicks, and a little bit easier. And that's the way it's sort of always gone in the NBA. But I just look at it and say, why isn't it enough to have the best team in the league, to have all this talent, to have the most talented team in the league, for it all to fit together seamlessly, for these guys all to sacrifice, and it's working? Why isn't that enough? Why didn't we now have to interject suddenly, everybody needs to get their piece of individual accolades into this thing?
Because we're greedy pigs.
Yeah, because we're stupid, Gasper. So, by the way, I do want to correct one thing you've said just for future reference. It's McBone, not McCone. Okay,
Yeah.
so get that right, Gasper.
Okay.
He doesn't answer to McCone. He answers to McBone. So you talked about what Tatum said earlier in the year about everyone having to sacrifice a little bit.
Yeah.
And this is a conversation, by the way, that the Celtics had way back when they won the championship with the last group. Same deal. We all have to give something up. Do you think Tatum has walked the walk? Do you think he has made sacrifices?
Up until this point, yeah, absolutely. I absolutely think he's done it. I think everybody's done it. I mean, I would say I think the guys that have done it the most are probably Drew Holiday and Porzingis. But Tatum, he averaged 30 a game last year. He's down to 27, and I think he has made the sacrifice. I guess my question now at this point is, because this is coming up, and again, my sense is it's not coming from him, but I could be wrong. But are we getting to a point now where that's starting to bother him a little bit?
Right.
He's bothered Mazz because he feels like I'm making this sacrifice, but nobody's really recognizing me for making the sacrifice, which kind of defeats the purpose of making the sacrifice if you're looking to get recognized for it.
Yeah, and it can creep into his consciousness too, right? Like all of a sudden, and now it's becoming part of the conversation and it's in his head. Like he's still a young guy. And I know this. I agree. I don't think it's really coming from him. His shots are down. His scoring is down. His assists are up a little bit. Even his rebounding is, I think, is about the same or even down a little bit. So, but the point is he's become a more efficient player because he has better pieces around him. The assists have gone up. The turnovers have gone down. The shots have gone down. I like what I've seen from Tatum this year. For the most part, I like what I've seen from Brown. I think his game has improved too. And Porzingis and Holiday are the new guys, so they're by definition they're going to come in and not be greedy. They're going to come in and be a little more careful. The one guy who's really gained more than anybody is White.
Yes.
Who, by the way, deserves it because he's a consummate team player, never says anything, and is now scoring more and getting some recognition that he's probably deserved for a long, long time. So that part of it I'm okay with. I was just curious as to whether you thought Tatum is impressionable. He's impressionable. And so it's a good point, Chris. If they start chirping with this stuff, it can get in his head. And I would say overall, they've been in a good place. He's been in a good place. Don't F with it. Like
that's exactly the way I feel. Like, don't mess with it. Like, we don't need to interject this. We don't need him out there trying to become the face of the league or trying to prove that he's the MVP. Like, just play the way you've been playing. You're the best team in the league. It's fitting together seamlessly. It's working great. They're a joy to watch. Let's not get distracted by this other stuff that doesn't really matter. Like, when you look at it, Kobe Bryant, right? Kobe Bryant only won one MVP, which to me is a travesty that he only won one. But do you think he would give up any of his championships to any of his 5 titles for another MVP? Do you think Steve Nash would give up his 2 MVPs for 1 championship?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Of course. Yeah, of course. At the end of the day, and the great players in that league, they're defined by the titles. In fact, maybe more than any other league. But just because of the influence the one star player in that league can have on a game.